How's it going, everyone? My name is Michael SK, and welcome back to Higurashi When They Cry Chapter 4. So we're hanging out with Ueshi-san. We have returned to the present, as far as I can tell, and I think we're just kind of covering up the events that have happened here, and we're kind of looking at things from an outside perspective, which I think is really useful here. What I want to know is, what is the state of the village now? Because he was using some past tense terms a little bit too much, which makes me curious as to what exactly happened. But anyways, he's asking if we believe in curses and shit. Having him say that so bluntly, I couldn't respond. Of course, I had no intention of believing such odd things, but he can only say that because he didn't know what I did. Since I met that other girl who both was and wasn't Rika Furude, goddamn, I couldn't deny the existence of any otherworldly entity. It is a good thing I brought water as my drink for the day. Not prescience, whatever the fuck, but a warning. If what the girl had said was a warning about Yukie's accident, then things became much easier to understand. Basically, the line of thinking became that it was a threat. Because I didn't go back to Tokyo, my wife was killed in a way that made it look like an accident. I mean, I understand this is kind of going back a ways, but no witnesses? No cameras? Nothing? There weren't any witnesses to Yukie's fall, there goes that one. There was the possibility that somebody had hidden, waiting to push Yukie down the stairs. However, the cleaning ladies frequented the roof to hang laundry, and the security cameras on each floor hadn't recorded anything out of the ordinary. There wasn't anything set up on the stairs, and I was unable to find anything suspicious. There Ueshi's expression had completely sobered up. When Yukie died, I thought that as well. More precisely, I wanted to blame somebody, so I created the most viable scapegoat. But without any clear evidence, that violent notion faded along with the wounds in my heart. Hiroshi smiled slightly in disbelief as he poured more beer from his bottle.
じゃあいいですよ。赤坂さんの言う通り。古出リカは未来がわかる預言者だとします。なら、なぜあの大災害が予知できなかったんです？あんな恐ろしいガス災害が起こると知ってて、どうして黙っていたんです？
Oh, so that happened. Okay. Well, kind of know what happened to the village now.
ほんの数時間前でもいい。もし村に知らされていたら、ほとんどの人は死なずに済んだかもしれないじゃないですか。
Great Hinamizawa disaster in memoriam list. Here we go again, boys. It was near the end of June 1983. So this is what is destined to happen, I guess. Doesn't matter what story we go down, this is how it will all end. Is that what I'm getting out of this? Volcanic gas from the Onigafuchi swamp erupted and hit the village in the middle of the night. It was an unprecedented disaster where the whole populace was wiped out. It caused a wave of panic about volcanic gas across the country, causing people to overreact over any reports of odd smells. I hadn't heard of the blockade on the Hinamizawa area being lifted, so it should still be cordoned off. It was my turn to be lost for a response.
まあでも、お社様の生まれ変わりである古出リカが殺されたので、村がお社様の怒りに触れて、それで沼から瘴気が湧き出して村を死滅させたんじゃないかって。そういう話が確かにHinamizawa系の生存した人間たちの間でまことしやかにささやかれてたのは事実ですね。
大石さん、失礼。今、殺されたとおっしゃいましたか？
ああ、まあ赤坂さんになら話しても問題ないか。
When I saw the news about the gas disaster, I remembered that girl. I then found her name in the list of victims, and that's why at the time I thought her own death had been, or she had predicted was due to the gas. It was after that I learned from the tabloids of the series of mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa during the 5 years leading up to the disaster that became known as the Curse of Oyashiro-sama, and that string of mysterious deaths lined up exactly with what that girl had predicted, so I had always thought to ask Oshi about it, as he had been involved in the investigation. That's right, that was the reason for our reunion. But right now Oshi had said, Rika Furude didn't die in the disaster, but was killed.
最後の年
Yeah.
のたたりについて聞かせてもらってもいいですか？
So, in Chapter 2, she was killed by Mion, of course. We learned about that. Mion killed both her and Soroko. And then things got weird. And as things were getting weird in Chapter 3, we found that Rika had been killed in such a violent manner.
私、退職したとはいえ、守秘義務がありますよ。
中井さん、すみません。お冷やで、ちょっとグレードの高い地酒はありませんか？種類はお任せします。
We're gonna get him drunk to tell us everything.
いやいや、そういうつもりで言ったんじゃないんだけどな。
Ueshi laughed loudly, not wholly unsatisfied, and stopped the hostess to tell her that the cheap booze was fine.
私も週刊誌で報道されている通りのところまでは知っています。でも、大災害の年のたたりは全く知りません。
例の大災害のせいで、Hinamizawa地区全域が封鎖されちゃいましたからね。最後の年のたたりについては、ほとんど捜査ができてないんですよ。何年か後に封鎖が解けたとしても、村人のほとんどが死んでますし、数少ない生存者も親戚の元なんかに散って、所在がほとんどわからないですからね。完全に迷宮入りです。
Ueshi seemed to postulate himself as he stared at the ceiling, as if trying to work out a memory from the rusty cogs in his head. And then he said in a completely sober voice,
週刊誌なんかじゃ、5年目のたたりが大災害だ、みたいな言い方をしてますけどね。
but it wasn't.
本当の5年目のたたりは、ちゃんと綿流しの祭りの当日にあったんですよ。富武二郎っていう旅行写真家がいましてね、彼が犠牲に。
Ueshi gestured about how the victim tore out his own throat with his fingernails as he talked.
で、その富武氏の恋仲の女性が山中で焼死体に。お隣の県警さんがあんまり協力的じゃなかったもんで、こっちはあまりよく状況を知らないんですがね。
一夜にして犠牲者が2人も。
実はね、2人どころじゃ済まないんですよ。
Oh, here we go.
その翌日になんですがね、私の後輩の熊谷くんが捜査中に車両ごと蒸発しましてね。
Oh, interesting. Kumagae was a younger detective that was going to be partnered with Ueshi after we first met.
富武氏の事件捜査のために村に聞き込みなんかに回ってたんですよ。何かの事件に巻き込まれたのかもしれない。私と一緒だったなら無事だったかもしれないと思うと、今でも悔しいですよ。
Well, in Chapter 3, we saw that Ueshi actually went missing as well. So,
あの日どういうわけか私、お腹をひどく壊しましてね、外回りは遠慮しちゃってたんですよ。
事件の真相に近づきすぎて消された
と 思ってます。クマちゃんは善と有望な若者だったけど、まだ現場経験が不足してた。トラブル慣れしてなかったんです。
Ueshi lamented the fact that he wasn't with his subordinate that day.
で、さらに翌日ですね。ああ、彼のことは赤坂さんもご存知ですよね。ほら、入江先生ですよ。
Oh, here we go.
覚えてます？
ああ、あの病院の若い先生ですね。ぼんやりと覚えてます。
彼ですね。どういうわけか睡眠薬で自殺しまして。
Which aligns with Chapter 3. But could that also be happening in the other chapters as well? Could what Keiichi was going through just be a massive coincidence?
遺書の類はなし。司法解剖の結果でも睡眠薬によるものと断定されました。動機以外に不審な点はなし。
睡眠薬での死に見せかけるのはそんなに難しくないんじゃないですか。他殺の可能性は。
独身で離婚歴もなし。特定の女性と付き合っていたという話もなし。少年野球チームの監督を務め、村人との親交もあり、誰からも好かれる人物。敵が見当たりませんね。まあそれを調べるにも、もうあの大災害でめちゃくちゃになっちゃいましたからね。今となっては彼の身辺を調べようもありませんが。
それでフルでリカの死は？
その当日です。昼頃に神社に訪れた村の老人たちが、
Yeah, this is all aligning with
フル
Chapter
でリカの
3.
死体を発見しました。
他殺。
ああ、話す前にそのイカそう
Oh
めん。
man.
無体な死に方。
Ueshi nodded firmly. Don't show us,
死
please.
体は神社の境
Don't
内、
show us.
賽銭箱の脇でした。もっとも閉めたのは他の場所でしょうね。全裸で裸足、足の裏は汚れてませんでしたから。
愉快犯の犯行。
司法解剖の結果、そういった痕跡は認められませんでした。分かったのは、薬物で昏睡させられてからあの場所へ運ばれ、腹部を切開。
Some sort of drug, huh?
意図的に臓器を引きずり出して四方に散らしてみせました。
昏睡？では回復は死後ではなく。
うん。
Wait, how were they able to predict that? Or put that together?
なんて。むごい。
That girl's prediction was right on the mark. I'm pretty sure she was more detailed about the other deaths that led up to her own. For example, I think she said that the housewife that was beaten to death on the 4th year had her head split open. Then in that case, did she know that her own death would be so terrible? There must have been some moments where she wanted to doubt the validity of her own predictions, but as people died exactly as prophesized, as the years passed, that prophecy would only come closer to fruition. And then, facing the final year, unable to struggle against her own destiny, her all-too-young life was snuffed out. And in such a cruel way. Knowing that her days were numbered and unable to fight the tide of events heralding her end, my heart ached at her helplessness.
この死に方ですが、どうも単なる猟奇趣味ってわけじゃないみたいなんです。と言いますのはですね、Hinamizawaはかつて鬼が住んでたって話は以前もしましたよね。
そんな話も聞きましたっけ。
Hinamizawa村のお祭りの綿流しってのはそもそも綿流し、つまり臓物流しから転じたものらしいんです。なんでも人食い鬼たちが犠牲者をばらして内臓を川に捨てた。
つまりHinamizawa村においては内臓を引きずり出すことに宗教的な意味があったと。
で、Hinamizawa村の昔話によるとですね、人食い鬼と人間が仲良く暮らすための調停者としてお社様という神様が降臨しているってことになってるらしい。
確かフルデリカはそのお社様の生まれ変わりだと言われてるんでしたね。
ねえ。ですからその嵐人神であるフルデリカを 回復して殺すのは村の信仰に対するこれ以上ない冒涜行為と言えるわけです。
信仰への冒涜。それはつまり、お社様への冒涜ということですね。
あとは赤坂さんも知っての通りです。お社様のたたりが起こるのはその晩のことです。
Hinamizawa大災害。
The official explanation was that some swamp upstream erupted with toxic volcanic gas, which enveloped the village.
発生した沼は鬼ヶ淵沼と言いまして、南沢村の旧名鬼ヶ淵村の名前の源となった沼です。村の言い伝えでは、この沼の奥底は地獄につながっているそうで、かつて村にやってきた人食い鬼たちはこの沼から訪れたのだとか。
できすぎですね。
いやいやいや、まだまだできすぎてますよ。村には伝承がありまして、お社様がお怒りになられると地獄の釜が開いて正気があふれ出すなんて言うんですよ。
Oh, perfect.
村人にとって地獄というのは沼の底のこと。つまりそこから正気があふれ出して村を襲うということ。
そう。つまり古出リカ子とお社様の生まれ変わりが冒涜される殺され方をしたので、お社様がお怒りになってたたりとしてあの大災害を起こしたと。
Interesting. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna take back what I said earlier because there's no way that the village will always end in that sort of way. And we've seen that because of Chapter 2. Chapter 2 went on a little bit further because Keiichi was still alive longer than he probably really needed to be and eventually was strangely murdered. But the point is that he was in the village way past the festival and everything. So there wasn't any sort of volcanic gases or whatnot, which means events occurred in such a way that ended with the entire village basically dying. In Chapter 3, that is. Chapter 1 and 2 were completely different. Rika died in Chapter 2 for sure, not sure what happened to her and Tsuriko in 1, but in Chapter 2, she did not die in such a sacrilegious way.
そういう話がまかり通っちゃってるんですよ。
We should probably keep that in mind.
つまり、あの大災害は人為的なもの。
確かに話ができすぎてますからね。お社様のたたりが実在せず、本当の偶発的事故でもないってんなら、そう疑いたくもなりますよね。
A wry smile formed on Ushi's face as he listened to my absurd take on things. He wore an expression as though, even if it were absurd, there was a time he had thought the same thing as well.
村の信仰をめぐって狂信的な一派があったと仮定し、彼らがお社様のお怒りがあるような状況を作り出し、大災害を実行してみせた。
もちろん私は笑いませんよ。私も一度ならずともそう考えたことはあります。ですがHinamizawa村がいかに小さい村とはいえ、人口は1000人以上。それを一夜にして抹殺するなんて、どう考えても現実的じゃないです。
The gas eruption was believed to have happened around 2 a.m., several hours before dawn. In that short amount of time, going around and killing all the villagers in a way that made it look like poison gas didn't seem feasible at all.
ガスの発生した沼もまた宗教的な意味がありましたよね。だとしたら、沼に何か仕掛けがあって、神の裁きをいつでも再現できるような何かがあったとか。
自衛隊の発表では沼が発生源だということになってますよね。調査チームとかが詳しく調べた上での発表ですからね。そんな仕掛けがあったら見つけてると思いますけどね。
沼そのものに仕掛けがあるとは限りませんよ。ほら、聞いたことありませんか？遠くの泉の水が枯れたら村の泉も枯れたなんて昔話。
何ですかそりゃ。
水源ってのは地下水脈等でつながっていることが多いんです。沼や泉はそれが地上に露出した部分に過ぎません。
つまり赤坂さんが言いたいのは、鬼ヶ淵沼とつながった別の沼か泉があって、それに何らかの仕掛けをすると、鬼ヶ淵沼の圧力とか水圧とかそういうものがいろいろ変わって毒ガスが噴出する仕掛けを大昔の村人がこさえていたと、そういう話ですよね。
Ueshi laughed heartily, commending the fact that the youngins have a nice flexible way of thinking. That was the former detective in him. Even though it was a hypothesis that he didn't come up with, he still had the presence of mind to not dismiss it right away.
面白い話です。それが立証できたら、日本の犯罪史始まって以来の空前規模の大量殺人ってことになりますよ。
Hinamizawa村の封鎖が解除されたら、ぜひ調べるべきだと思います。大石様、県警にはまだ影響力は？
そこそこには。柔道部の名誉顧問ですからね。今でも夏の合宿やなんかにはちょくちょく出かけてます。
Hinamizawa村の封鎖解除がいつになるかわかりませんが、ぜひ調べさせてください。
わかりました。
大石さんはこのHinamizawa村連続開始事件。
当時の署内は村人の圧力でぎゅうぎゅうでしてね。連続事件は存在しないというのが当時の公式見解でした。事件は個々で、またそれぞれに解決していると。
バカな。村の信仰に基づいた連続事件であることは明白なのに。
赤坂さん、そりゃ5年も続いて派手な最後があった今だから言えることですよ。
Yeah, I mean, he talked about this in Chapter 1, and I completely understand why they came off as separate.
あの当時は、偶然の事件が偶然にも綿流しの日に起こる。今年は起きないといいな、なんて感じだったんです。
偶然なものか。少女は初めから全て予言していた。
少女？
フルデリカです。あの子は。私にその後の事件を全て予告してみせました。
赤坂さん、そりゃ本当ですか？
はい。あの子は言ったんです。翌年、ダムの現場監督が殺され、死体をバラバラにされると。のみにとどまらず、その後に続く連続事件を全て私に予告してみせました。
赤坂さんがその話を聞いたのは昭和の何年の話ですか？
私が少女と出会ったのは誘拐事件調査の折ですから、昭和53年6月です。
バラバラ殺人の前年に？
Wrinkles formed between Ueshi's eyebrows as he closed his eyes and began to digest what I had just told him.
赤坂さん、フルでリカが神通力で未来が分かった。なんて話がなしだとするなら、これはとんでもない話ですよ。
Oh, this whole thing is getting ridiculous. I don't even know what to believe anymore.
はい。
今さら私を驚かせるための作り話だ。なんて言ったら本気で怒りますよ。
私は真実を話しています。連続開始事件は発生の前年にはもうすべてシナリオが用意されていた。
Or even further beyond.
そしてその予告の通り、フルでリカは殺されました。私ははじめ大災害による死を指したものと思っていた。でも彼女の死は災害ではなく、殺人者の手による残忍なものであることが分かりました。
Well, here's another one.
彼女は殺されると言った。
Here is another thing here. She very much so expressed that she didn't want to die. She did not want that event to happen. And she was very vague with how she would die. It's just basically like what Akasaka was talking about earlier, the fourth death, you know, with her head being split open. Okay, that's very specific. But with Rika, it was like, okay, that's not very specific, and it's not even on the day of. It's very vague as to when it will happen. And I think it's because of the actions that Keiichi commits during these chapters. Whatever events happen, steer the timeline like a fucking visual novel, like what we're playing, and different events in the world play out, but they have to go along in such a strict manner because the events will happen in some sort of way. Everything that is set in stone according to Rika's predictions.
彼女は自分の死を
Does that make sense?
具体的にあの時点で知っていたんです。
なら、フルでリカはどうして逃げ出さなかったんですかね。仮にそういった死のシナリオがすでに出来上がっていたとして、
Because it's already set in stone, nothing you can do.
彼女はそれを知りかつ、数年という猶予期間があったわけですよね。
Like, Keiichi tried to do things that weren't, supposed to happen, apparently. Or at least that's what Mion and Rena seem to say. So what I'm thinking here is that if she tried to go off the set path, events would occur that would put her right back on it.
逃げ出すなり、警察に相談するなりの時間はあったはずです。なぜ抗わずに、自らの死を受け入れたんです。
わかりません。
フルデリカは、村の年寄り連中に可愛がられてはいましたがね。両親を失った後は、親類もゼロで身寄りはなく、親しい友人と肩を寄せ合うだけの孤独な生活でしたからね。戦う力も、頼れる人間も、身近にはいなかったのかもしれません。
彼女は自分の死に対して、誰かに SOS を発しはしなかったんでしょうか。
村と警察が穏便な関係じゃなかったのは、赤坂さんも知られるところだと思います。少なくとも私の耳には、フルでリカが自身の身柄の保護を求めてきたという情報はありません。あるいは、自身が宗教的な生贄にされることに対し、定感というか、達観というか、そういうものがあったのかもしれませんね。
そんなはずはない。
I spoke decisively. At that time, she said it. She had definitely said that she wanted to live happily, that she wanted to spend her time surrounded by her dear friends. She hadn't given up on life, she had hoped to keep living. Yeah, to keep on living. Ah. At that moment, I became dumbstruck.
どうしました?赤坂さん?
いえ。
I fell into silence. Ueshi folded his arms and began murmuring in contemplation again. Eventually, he stood up and headed towards the hallway to find the hostess, yelling that he wanted a pen and paper. When Ueshi, noisy even though he was just thinking, left, the room immediately fell into a chilled silence. I stood up. It was then I realized that I was drunk enough to be unsteady on my feet. When I slid open the window, a beautiful yet somehow ephemeral moon drifted across the night sky. It was just now that I realized she hadn't accepted her own death. She wanted to keep on living, happily and joyously, and she had said that quite clearly to me. But I was a fool. I hadn't been asked explicitly, so I hadn't realized it. She had made it clear as day that she didn't want to die. Wasn't that her cry for help? She didn't say as much that she wanted help, but even given that, it wasn't as though she wasn't looking for salvation. Without any family and unable to trust the police, she instead told somebody without any relation to the village, somebody from a faraway place. Me. Help me. She had gone around and cut the phone cords. If I had made that phone call and learned of Yukie's death, I probably would have fallen into despair. If I was in that state, even if she was looking for help, her cries would have fallen on deaf ears. And that's why, knowing everything, she had cut the phone cords. She wanted even a little time to seek help from me. Ueshi, just before now, had lamented that one of the younger officers gotten mixed up in a case, having been erased because he wasn't there. I was feeling the same way. If only I was there in June of 1983. I could have protected her. In 1983, it would have been 5 years since the kidnapping took place. While raising the only daughter Yukie had left me, putting all my youth and passion into my work, honing my wits and courage, wrestling with difficult cases, nothing like my failings during the kidnapping incident would have occurred. I wouldn't have been slow to react in a one-on-one fight, and by that point I jumped into foreign mafia-run gambling parlors where I'd learned to deal with automatic weapons, let alone handguns. Goddamn, Akasaka went on a fucking roller coaster. I had grown so much that in 1983, I couldn't have even been compared to how I was in 1978. That's why, if I was by her side, I should have been able to save her life. No matter what conspiracy or foul plots drew near, I definitely would have protected her. She, even though sounding resigned, should have still been able to ask me for help. I just didn't realize it. I couldn't realize it. Just as I wouldn't have realized it if I was told of Yukie's accident, I wasn't able to realize it. I wanted to cry. If I had taken her words to heart, I would have prevented Yukie's accident. And I would have been able to protect the girl to whom I owed a debt from, even a predetermined death. She must have been expecting that from me. I learned about the disaster while watching television in my house. Until I learned about that, I had forgotten about Hinamizawa. In order to recover from the shock of Yukie's death, I had tried to remove everything about the place from my memory. What an ungrateful fool I was. Even though in exchange for saving her, the girl had told me of a way to save Yukie, I was unable to accept her gratitude. And now here we were. She hadn't died in her sleep due to an unnatural disaster. She was split open while still alive, killed while suffering the disgrace of having her organs torn out. She must have known beforehand that on that day, on that year, she would have been killed in such a terrifying way. But even knowing what end awaited her, she was all too weak. A lone girl without anybody to rely upon, unable to seek help, had to swallow her own predetermined death, and left this mortal coil. She said she wanted to live. She said she just wanted to live happily. And that's all she wanted. She didn't ask for anything extravagant. For any person that was ever born, it was the very basest of desires. She never said a peep about wanting money or that she wished she was in somebody else's situation. She had said it, that if all deaths were preordained, then hers was probably also all according to plan. She might have been a lone girl, or a lone frail girl, but I don't think that she would have accepted it all without at least putting up a fight. There must have been some small way, some form of resistance that she mustered, and with what she could muster, seeking my help was part of that. I howled. I stomped the floor. Why did I become a police officer in the first place? How could I call myself an officer if I couldn't save a single girl from the misfortune that was awaiting her? Was it because there was so much going on at that time that I couldn't process the fact that she was asking for help? Yeah, that's right, I was still green. If I was in that situation now, I would have definitely been able to help her. But it was already all over. Even if I wanted to settle the regrets she left behind, Hinamizawa, as a dangerous area, was still quarantined. Most of the people involved were already dead, with the few that did remain spread around the country, unable to be traced. The stage of that tragedy was still off limits as well. The police investigation was put on hold, the case slowly being buried in the sands of time. Just like how I wouldn't have known unless Oshi had asked me about it.
Akasaka-san, 大丈夫ですか?
At some point, Oshi had returned with a notebook in hand. Until I saw the expression on Oshi's face, I didn't realize that I was in tears.
私は気づけなかった。少女の助けに気づけなかった。
赤坂さん、落ち着いてください。
でも、もう全部遅いんです。少女は殺された。こんなにも無残な殺され方で、私は頼られたのに。救えなかった。救えなかった。
村人と良好な関係を築かなかった私にも責任があるかもしれません。
I mean, you can't really think about what ifs, or rely on them too much.
フルでリカが私にそれを打ち明けてくれたなら、 私だって救いの手を差し伸べられたかもしれない。彼女が打ち明けに足る信頼を築けなかった。後悔しています。
When Ueshi said the word trust, it weighed on me even more. Yes, she had given me her trust. She trusted me, meaning that she thought that I would be able to ward off the fate of her foreseen death, She believed in that. I cried. I fell to my hands and knees as I began to bawl. Eventually, Ueshi spoke quietly.
Akasaka さん、悔しいですか？
悔しいです。
ならば、フルでリカの仇を取るに値する方法が一つだけあります。
そんな方法があるんですか？
Ueshi showed me the pen and notebook.
フルでリカの死を悼むためにも、せめて私たちで真相を。そうです。フルでリカだけじゃない。大勢が死にました。彼らの無念は計り知れません。でも彼らの死は、あの大災害でうやむやにされ、今は捜査すらされることなく、忘却の彼方に葬られようとしています。大勢死んだ。おやっさんも殺された。クマちゃんも消された。みんな犠牲になった。なのに警察は捜査もできないでいる。誰に無念が晴らせるのか。私たちだけなんですよ。赤坂さん。
私たちに真相が。
ええ、明かせますよ。連続開始事件の全ての現場を踏み、村の裏事情に精通する私と、連続開始事件の前年にフルでリカから重要な真実を明かされたあなたとなら。
でももう死んでしまったんですよ。
そうです。フルでリカは死にました。あなたが青2歳だったから救えなかった。
All right. Ueshi grabbed me, who was a wreck, and lifted me firmly by the lapels.
だから、その償いとして真相を究明するんです。あなたの話が事実なら、全ての事件は計画ということになる。そうならば、調べ方は全然変わってくるんですからね。私は今夜をかけてあなたと私の持つ全ての情報をノートにまとめ、明日の朝一番で元の部下たちと連絡を取るつもりです。あの事件を終わらせるものか、絶対に暴いてやるんです。
暴く
ねえ、あれから数年が経過しましたが、時効ではない。捜査は中断であっても終了ではない。まだ続いているんです。続けさせるんです。
ええ、やりましょう。大石さん、このまま終わらせたりなんかしない。絶対私たちがこの真相を暴いてみせるんです。絶対に。
I demonstrated my resolve to Ueshi by crying out those words. And just then... Oh.
Papa?
I guess we were, like, shouting at the fucking loudest we could be. The sliding door behind me opened and Miyuki revealed herself while sleepily rubbing her eyes. My shouting must have awoken her, and then she rushed over to me.
どうしたのパパ。パパ、泣いてるの？
ああ、なんでもない。なんでもないよ、みゆき。
I tried hard to smile while wiping away my tears, and though Miyuki looked like she was about to cry herself, she extended her little hand to me.
大丈夫？また怖い夢を見たの？
Another? God damn.
泣かないで、パパ。
Akasaka's got it rough. And when she makes that gesture toward me, I saw the figure of another girl overlapping with her. And her innocent gaze and innocent expression felt frustratingly nostalgic, filling me with painful torment. A girl who couldn't be here because I didn't reach out to her. She borrowed my daughter's body to offer me words of comfort. Ah, come on, man.
泣かないでくださいなのです。
It might be a hallucination. It is. We're fucking crazy. Maybe a convenient illusion formed from my selfish dreams. However, that was her voice. I'm certain of it. Rather than blaming me for my mistake, she was compassionate.
泣くものか。泣くよりもまず私にはやるべきことがある。みゆき、パパはね、お前が生まれる前にHinamizawaってところだ。天使みたいな女の子に会ったんだ。
天使？本当に？
ああ。可愛くて優しくて、みゆきにも会わせてあげたかったな。
Right. That's already an impossible wish. That future is already gone.
へえ。じゃあみゆき、その子とお友達になりたい。楽しみだな。今度みゆきも連れて行ってね。Hinamizawaに。
Even so, there's still something I can do.
ああ、そうだね。いつか一緒に会いに行こう。必ず。
Someday, I'm sure, we will see her again. That summer, the Higurashi cried in Hinamizawa. Damn, I was getting some Clannad vibes. Ueshi and I vowed to bring the truth of the case to light and stood up. Everything ended in 1985. I, at least wanting to apologize, had searched for her grave. After the state autopsy, her remains were entrusted to one of the shrine's followers. In the future, when the quarantine on the Hinamizawa area was lifted, they would be returned to her family grave. However, unsure who exactly took the remains of Rika Furude, until today I couldn't even apologize to her. In the future, when the quarantine on Hinamizawa is lifted, all I could do then was wait until whoever that person is returned to the grave. What I could do right now was not apologize to her. Instead, until I was able to meet her again, I would reveal the truth and dispel her regrets. Even now, sporadic eruptions of gas in the Hinamizawa area meant that the prospect of the quarantine being lifted wasn't happening anytime soon. Most likely, it seemed like she had no intention of meeting me again until I found the truth. And that's why the quarantine wouldn't be lifted. Or so I thought, until the day I grasped the truth. It was the following year. Ueshi and I co-authored a book on the string of mysterious deaths leading up to the great Hinamizawa disaster. I decided on the title, Higurashi, When They Cry. That was because for those few days I was in Hinamizawa, the sound that I remembered the most was the cry of the Higurashi. I could only wish that based on this book, those people involved with that incident could refresh their memories and bring to light a new truth. And more importantly, that nothing like this ever happens again. I wrote this in the afterword. Why did well, fuck me.
どうして起こされたのか。私たちだけでは真相に至ることが叶いません。
I wanted to read it.
どうかこれを読んだあなた、真相を解き明かしてください。それだけが私たちの願いです。
I guess I realized they couldn't do it on their own. Which makes sense, this shit's fucky. This year, the quarantine on Hinamizawa still hasn't been lifted. Nice. I thought another fucking explosion of gas happened. Not really sure why that sound effect was used there, but whatever. Aha! There is an all-cast review session. And aha, this will be the last episode. Works for me, I guess. Achievement unlocked, our only wish. Very interesting how they always find a way to implement the title of Higurashi When They Cry. That seemed probably the most, obvious that it was going to be implemented. But obviously they cry. But I think the point is that they cry during specific times. Maybe, I don't know. Alright, let's go through this shit. And then that'll be it for Chapter 4. Yeehaw, brothers.
この度は日暮の泣く頃に水暇つぶしをプレイしてくださり
Oh hey, older Rika.
いやいや、なんだかんだと言いましても今回のシナリオは私の独壇場でしたからね。 しかも渋いジャズ調なテーマ曲まで追加。
You know, I will say, still don't really like Ueshi all that much. I respect him at times. I respect him, or I disrespect him at others. I don't know. I think he's dirty whenever it comes to a lot of things, and that kind of showed in Chapter 3, teeny tiny bit in Chapter 2, and, well, not really at all in Chapter 1. I can see why he's disliked, but I guess as a police officer, investigator, whatever, you gotta get to the truth somehow.
これで笑えなきゃどこで笑えって言うんですかねなはははは。
というわけで大石はそろそろ出過ぎなのですよ。
え、それはどういう意味ですか、リカ。
I have no idea what just happened.
言葉通りの意味じゃい。あれだけ出番があってここまで出張ろうとは身の程をわきまえないにも程がございましてよ。今回はメインヒロインはリカちゃん以外みんな出番ほとんどなかったからね。
You all didn't.
今回は箸休め的なシナリオだからとは聞いてたけど、ここまでメイン勢がないがしろにされるとは思わなかったよ。
ミオンさんはまだいい方ではございませんの。多少は登場していましたよ。
Oh yeah, she did.
私とレナさんなんか気配も出てきませんですわ。
Well, you were brought up, Sotoko.
レナはジャケットにも登場してますですからまだマシなのですよ。
Why are you so loud?
ということはつまり何ですの？私だけが一人のけ者で出番なしということなんでございますの？ミパー。
God damn it.
私だけこの扱いはひどいですわ。かわいそかわいそですよ。きっとだんだん扱いが悪くなって最後には脇役に転落しているに違いないのですよ。
What the fuck?
そんなのあんまりですわ。そんなことないよ。さとこちゃんのことが好きな人だって大勢いるんだもん。そんなひどい扱いになんかならないよね。こんな扱い嫌ですの。きっと次こそ出番がいっぱいあると思うな。元気出してこね。
しかし今回のシナリオはおまけ的なシナリオとは聞いてたけど、実際どうよ。なんだか随分話がややこしくなったように思うんだけど。
I don't think they got complicated. I think it just kind of fleshed some things out, especially on Rika, which was kind of needed from some of the things we were hearing recently.
僕には難しくてよくわかんないお話だったのですよ。何しろ信じられなかったのが連続開始事件が起こる前の年にもうリカちゃんがそれを知っていたなんて。
ってことはつまり全ての事件は最初から予定されたシナリオってことになるんだよね。これはかなり大きい情報だよ。
僕がきっと巫女なのでお社様のお告げで未来が分かったに違いないのですよ。
人間犯人説の私としてはそれは真っ先に否定したいところだな。
レナはたたり派なんでHinamizawaを見守るお社様の生まれ変わりであるリカちゃんにそういう神通力もひょっとするとあったんじゃないかなって思うな。
ダメダメ。人間派はそういう得体の知れないファンタジーは一切認めないの。事件は全て人間の仕業。たたりも魔法もイカサマもズルも一切なし。
Wait, aimbots?
僕は魔法とか使えたら素敵だと思いますのですよ。リカちゃんならなんとなくそういうのが使えてもいいかなって思うな。
If they implemented magic and Rika was the one that could use it, I probably wouldn't be opposed either. It'd probably make the story even better.
まあ人間派にとっては最後の最後でとにかくこれはでかい情報だね。最初の事件から リカちゃんが殺され大災害に至るまでが全てシナリオ。つまり丸々一つの事件だったってことが分かるだけで推理材料は格段に増えるんだから。
レナはこの予言こそつまりリカちゃんが神通力を使える証拠。つまりHinamizawa村には不思議な力が存在するんだってことの証拠になると思ってる。人間だけに起こせる事件じゃないことの証明になるんじゃないかな。僕は頭がこんがらがってわかんないです。
Oh, that's me every time I record an episode of this.
そうだそうだ、それよりもさ、今回リカちゃんが見せたあの表情、なんだか怖かったな。
みー、レナも驚いたな。
Oh, I think we all were.
可愛らしいリカちゃんがあんな笑い方をするとは思わなかったよ。
ねえ、ちょっとさもう一回あの顔をしてみせてよ。
嫌なこったなのですよ。レナも劇中以外ではしてほしくないな。はう。あ、なに停電かな。
Oh, nice.
全員動くなでございましてよ。変な動きをしますとバルカン一斉射撃から誘導ミサイル連射、そしてとどめにレーザーサーベルめった切りをお見舞いしましてよ。
さとこ、これは何の真似？
Oh, hey. The other gang, or other members of the big ol' Hinamizawa gang is here.
出番なし軍団、これよりお疲れ様会を占領させていただきましてよ。
Or should I say Higurashi gang? I don't know anymore.
なんだか素敵な登場をありがとう。改めまして皆さん、こんにちは。
いやー、まさかこんなところで出番があるとはな。思わぬ出番が嬉しいよ。さとこちゃん、ありがとう。
皆さんこんにちは。
I have no idea what's happening.
身動きなさらない方がいいと警告しましてよ。
竜宮さん、大丈夫ですか？王女さん、ここまでやらなくても。
出番がなかった恨みは恐ろしいんですのよ。本編の分までさとこが大活躍なのです。
出番なしの恨みってわけか。くそー、いつの間にこれだけのトラップを。
ここがお疲れ様会の会場に選ばれた。その時点ですでに私のトラップにかかっていたということになるんではありませんの？
そうか、わかった。あんたの後ろで糸を引いているやつがいるね。いるんでしょ？出てきなさい。
Oh, hey, it's the other Mion.
ハロロン、マイシスター、ごきげんよう。
しーちゃんだ。こんにちは。
Oh, goodbye, Rena.
同じ罠に2度もかかってかわいそです。
やっぱりシオンか。何気に主役張ったシナリオまであるのにこの狼藉。あんたやってくれるじゃないの。怪盗編前の折り返しおまけシナリオとはいえ、お姉だけに出番を許すほど私も寛大じゃないってことです。
Oh, that's right, she is gonna be the main character next time. Totally forgot about that.
そんなわけでちょっとサトコを焚きつけさせてもらいました。シオン、あんた何が望みなの？安全圏の確保とでも言いますか。昨今ですね、どういうわけかお姉がじりじりと票を伸ばしてるんですよね。
共通ルートのみーちゃん萌えって意見が開発陣の間でも結構多いんだよ。
But she owns so much better, even so she was like a terrified fucking mess. And not dependable at all.
恋路の悪いあんたのボロが出て、プレイヤー処刑はやっと私の魅力に気づいてきたってことだね。サトコもたたり殺しで高評価らしいし、レナやリカちゃんには根強い固定票があるし、
あんたの人気もとっくに陰ってるってことだね。
そういうわけで不穏に票を伸ばすお姉やさとこをここいらで一つ叩き落としておこうと思いまして、こういう大仕掛けを打たせてもらったというわけです。
シオンさん、今何と言いまして？
Oh, you were included in that one.
私も叩き落とすですって？
おちびちゃんは気づくのが遅いようで。そら！
にゃにゃにゃー。
Goodbye, Sotoko.
さよならレギュラーの皆さん、こんにちはイレギュラーの皆さん。あんたたちメインヒロインはこれでおしまいです。
シオンちゃん、そこまでやらなくてもいいんじゃないかな。
Probably, he says.
まあまあ二郎さん、面白いからほっときましょうよ。私たち二人の出番がいっぱい増えるのよ。二郎さんは私と一緒。いや。
Well, I still fucking question her.
そんなことないよ。
I still don't think, after the events of Chapter 3, that he was actually the victim. I think she was pulling some strings there. Maybe this is like a, what is it? Foreshadowing, yeah.
先生までしーちゃんに買収されちゃったんですか？
Or a hint.
ごめんねリュウグウさん。シオンさんが次回のシナリオからは教えて千恵先生のコーナーを作ってくれるっていうからつい。
さーてと、誰から恥ずかしい処刑をしてあげましょうかね。大仕掛けを手伝ってくれたお礼にさとこからかな。
それは許しませんよ。
Who's this? Oh,
監督、
kind of forgot about him.
なんだか珍しく頼もしく見えますわ。
さとこちゃんに対する狼藉は私入江京介が許すわけにはいきません。
Oh, that's right. He has some sort of weird
私も
addiction with
脇役
her.
一派ではありますが懐柔できると思わないことですよ。
ありゃ、この後に収録予定の実録さとこメイド教育着せ替え編の主役は降板したいと？
シオン様、
God damn it.
この入江一生どこまでもついてまいります。
怪獣早っ。さーて、
Honorifics changed there too.
これで全て私の支柱ですね。これからはお疲れ様会もシナリオも全て私の思うままに進めさせてもらいますね。あれ、一人足りない。
シオン様、竜宮さんがいません。いつの間に抜け出したのか。
いた、リュウグウさん。さっき身動きしてはいけませんって言ったはずですよ。
レナちゃん、悪いことは言わない。抵抗しない方が無難だよ。
レナ、悪いけどこんなやり方おかしいと思います。
それは何の真似？目明かし編の台本？なるほど。登場回数を削られる前に確保しておこうという魂胆ね。無駄な抵抗を。
レナさん、無駄な抵抗はよしておとなしくした方がいいと思います。私をあんまり怒らせるとあなただけでなくお姉たちの処遇も変わってくることになりますよ。台本を確保したくらいじゃ何もできないよ。レナ、ここは悔しいけど言う通りにした方が。
大丈夫、安心して。この目明かし編の台本が加わったことでレナたちはこの状況を逆転できるの。逆転？一体どんな秘策があるというんですの？
レナさんは結構笑わせるのがうまいですね。なら試してみたらどうです？その逆転ってやつを試しに見せてください。
しーちゃんは甘えてる。 本編にいくら出番がなかったからってこうしてお疲れ様会でこれだけの出番を得ているのに甘えてるよ。
私がいつ甘えたって言うんです？
しーちゃんは分かってない。たとえお疲れ様会だけといえども出演し、他のシナリオにもあれだけ登場しておいてこの狼藉、そんなしーちゃんをね、許すことができない地獄の怨嗟がほら聞こえてこない？そうか、わかりましたわ。
I don't.
そうか、ケイちゃんか。
Oh.
そうだよね、お疲れ様会はいつも出番なし。そのケイちゃんを差し置いてお疲れ様会占領なんてケイちゃんが許すはずがない。なるほど。で、その未だに収録居残り中のケイちゃんがどうやってここへ現れると？
Ring him up.
まさかケイちゃんを私たちの誰かが追い抜いたわけでもあるまいに。
そう思うのがしーちゃんの慢心だよ。
いけない。あれは赤坂編の収録ワード数表。知恵先生、レナちゃんを取り押さえて。
もう遅いよ。いよいよ出番だよ。
Is he gonna make an appearance? Are we gonna see a sprite? After 4 fucking chapters?
その声はケイちゃん？まさかケイちゃんは収録居残り中のはず。
そうさ、今まではそうだった。収録居残りのたびに残りワード数で誰かを抜けばお疲れ様会に参加してもいいよ。それでも他のキャラと比べても2倍あるいは3倍以上もある分量をこなすなど不可能。というか最初から参加させる気ないだろ、音響監督さんよと思って諦めてきたが、ついに俺は抜いたあるキャラを。シオン、これを見やがれ。
え？
そう、主役として登場パターンが増えたシオンは当然喋るワード数もこれまでの2倍。しかもミオンとキャストが同じだからさらに2倍。
Oh, hey.
その結果俺はようやくついに居残り免除。そしてシオン、今度はお前が居残りだ。
嘘。私次の目明かしでこんなに喋るんですか？ケイちゃんが約500でシオンは
What the fuck?
2700超え。これ普通のアドベンチャーゲームなら全キャラの総合係数だよ。
しかもこれにミーの数が加わるのです。その数やなんと、
聞きたくない
というわけでだ、レナ感謝するぜ。月にすら見放され真の闇が地上を覆いし時、漆黒の魔王前原啓示降臨。
I wanted to see a sprite. I see. If it's like this, he can appear even if he doesn't have any character art. There's no character or background art, so it's really easy on the production staff. I think he gets a sprite in the next one, right? Since we're not following him.
俺から見れば実に滑稽千番。少しいい気になりすぎたみたいだな。お疲れ様会のたびに常に居残りになって異老の一杯にすらありつけなかった俺の怒りを、恨みを、悲しみを今こそ教えてくれるぜ。
なんだかケイチくん悪の化身みたいだな。
化身じゃない、魔王と言ってもらいたいぜ。そして俺が抑圧された悪夢の中で手に入れた闇の力はまさに無限大で無量大数。俺による俺のために作り出したこの闇の世界では俺に逆らうことは何人にもかなわぬのだ。
ケイチくんなんだか怖いな。
怖い怖い日暮らしの時間はもう終わりだぜ。ここからはポップ ブでキュートで萌え萌えな日暮らしが始まるのだ。
Hell yeah, the 18 plus version.
なんですって前原様、ぜひ私もお供に。
監督は分かってるじゃねえか。じゃあお医者な監督をしもべに迎えた第一弾として我が魔力を見せよう。
なんなのこれ。
高野さんがミニスカなナースさん、ナース服に。
Well, I guess everything is easier on the production staff
しかも
now.
ピンクとかのギャルゲー的な色じゃない。分かってる。ちゃんと清楚な純白だ。
ナースさんの分際で本編で一度もナース服を着ないとは笑止千万。さてと次の標的はと。
レナ、これじゃ全然形勢は逆転してないよ。新しいピンチを迎えちゃってるよ。
はあ、こんな真っ暗じゃレナにもどうしようもないよ。
さーて次は誰にどんな衣装を着せようかね。手堅く制服、体操服、すく水の三段コンボでも決めとくか。
前原様、最高っす。その後はバニーさんにコンパニオンに。いえいえ、レオタード姿もいいですね。いやいや、いっそみんなお色気全開にしちゃうってのはどうでしょう。もちろん靴下は残すのであります。
Oh, but of course.
それいい、分かってるじゃねえか。監督、俺やっとあんたと打ち解けられた気がするぜ。
いえいえ、前原さん。
いえ、ケイ、私のことはこれからはイリーとドクターイリーとお呼びよ。ケイ、僕たちのことも忘れちゃ困るよ。
トミーとクラウドも
God
常
damn
に
it.
K のそばにありますよ。
トミー、クラウド、ついに揃ったぜ。
Wait, why is Ueshi-san called Cloud? What the fuck?
四天王、ここに見参だ。
ついに K を筆頭に悪の四天王が揃い踏み、
I didn't even know we had a narrator.
暗黒を得てついに地上に降臨を果たした漆黒の魔王前原圭一。その魔力は絶大にして無比。この闇では誰にも立ち向かえない。屈するほかない。ああ、ヒロインたちはこの闇を抜け出せず、魔王たちの思うがままに恥ずかしい衣装を次々と強要され、永遠に等身大着せ替え人形の扱いをされてしまうのか。最高だぞ、もっとやれっていうか、すく水はちゃんと旧タイプだろうな。競泳型だったら許さんぞ。
ダク、シオン、あんたのせいでこうなったんだから、あんたなんとかしなさいよ。
大丈夫ですおね。暗闇の中で真の力を売るのはケイちゃんだけじゃないです。
そんな都合のいい味方ここにいましたっけ。
チョコザイナ、園崎シオン。ちなみに校長先生を期待してるなら残念だな。男子本会ここに極まれり。男たる者最善を尽くすべしとお墨付きがちゃんとあるのだ。もちろん新登場の赤坂さんに頼ろうとしても無駄だぜ。昨日からお嬢さんを親類に預けて夫婦水入らずで温泉旅行だそうだからな。つまり八方塞がりってわけさ。
甘いですねケイちゃん。安易に闇の世界を生み出して妄想全開すっちゃらか万歳ってやってしまうと、とある誰かも真の姿を表すことが可能になるのです。というわけで、知恵先生、そういうわけです。前原くん、
真っ暗でよく見えませんけど、なんだか知恵先生の服装が変わってますわね。
I have no idea what's happening anymore. I'm kind of just like turning my brain off and just going along with it.
何ですの？あの両手にいっぱいの剣は。まさかそんな、それはいくらなんでも反則。それ以上は内緒なのですよ、ミパー。
前原くん、少しお板が過ぎたようです。これ以上は教会も見逃せません。
But church?
ちょっと待てよ。これはないだろ。ずるだろ。作品違うじゃねえか。おい、こんなのなしだろ。そのでかいのはまずいって。早すぎる。あんたその動きは絶対人間やめてるだろ。
I feel like this is a reference to something, and I just don't know what. Alright. I guess that's that. We don't even get told, you know, well, hope you join us in chapter 5, whatever the fuck it's called. It's just that's that. Damn, that one was oh nope, okay, there we go. Never mind, we're actually not done.
改めましてこんにちは。この度は日暮の泣く頃
There
の
we
水
go. It's all coming
暇つぶしを
together
お楽
now.
しみくださり誠にありがとうございました。
I think you already know this, but Higurashi When They Cry is a type of visual novel without any choices. Therefore, compared to adventure-type visual novels with branching routes to take, it's much closer to the experience of a book or a movie. Because of that, there is no opinion out there that this should not be called a game per se. If you're just watching it like a book or a movie, Higurashi When They Cry isn't really a game, true. And that's why, as you know, there are a lot of mysteries referenced during the course of the experience. When you challenge those, this work will become a proper game.
プレイヤーの皆さんにはこの謎に満ちた物語をさまざまな角度から捉え吟味する権利があります。例えば劇中に散りばめられた謎について推理をしそれを発表して反響を得たりすることもまた楽しいかと思います。
In any case, the next chapter starts the answer arcs. We've tentatively called it Miyakashi, but answers are a sad thing based on what is revealed. All the possibilities that you were allowed to imagine until now will suddenly become refined down to a few. Based on that logic, we think that right here before the answer arcs is probably where people can enjoy this work we call Higurashi When They Cry the most. If by chance, while you are reading this, you already have the Miyakashi chapter at hand, please enjoy hypothesizing, theorizing, and fantasizing to the fullest before you start. That's where the real charm of the series takes place. Sorry for saying something so impudent. There's nothing better we'd like than for you to enjoy Higurashi When They Cry.
それでは素敵な夜長をHinamizawa村で皆さんをお待ちしていますね。レナと遊んでくれるなら一緒に宝探しに行きたいな。
This is getting too real.
はう。
Alright, there we have it. Got the achievement for it. Okay, so we're done with all of the question arc games. As you can tell, I'm fighting to the end here to do all 8 chapters and then whatever else is after that. Thank you all so much for joining me so far on this journey. And before we wrap up, I'll state a little bit of my thoughts. I mean, there wasn't really much to think on this one. I think it was all pretty cut and dry in terms of the mystery. I kind of stated my thoughts as we went along with it. But in general, I think there's 4 things that we need to consider. I think it is possibly a mix of these 4 things. It used to be 3, but I thought of a 4th that could make some sense here. And it was kind of brought up into this. Maybe, I don't know, in this chapter. 1, I do believe that a lot of things that occur are, human-made incidents. Deaths of people are most likely the cause of human, actions. And we saw this in chapter 2. I think referenced a bit in chapter 1 with Tomatake's death, and well, that stayed pretty consistent. But in chapter 2, Mion being the one who was killing people, and chapter 3, when Keiji tried to be a killer, it wasn't allowed. And that kind of moves on into my second point here, is that there is some, mystical, magical shit that's happening that I can't explain because it's not, it's not scientific. It's not something that can be explained or understood. It is the power of a Yashiro-sama or something else. I do think something's happening that isn't normal, but I can't say what. It's just because there's too many contradictions that it just doesn't make sense. And It's that whole we're on a strict path sort of deal that I think is something I'll try to stick with. And sure, you can argue, oh yeah, visual novel choices, haha, whatever. But somebody did bring up in the comments that as we go in through these different chapters, different events take place that isn't based on choices, like Sadako's uncle coming into town, or it raining in chapter 3. Remember when it rained on the night of the Watanagashi? That's not normal. Or just anything else, whatever you can think of. These events shouldn't take place based on different choices that Keiichi were to make. So I think something magical or whatever is taking place that really is messing up with things. Or at least I'd like to say. And then what, in chapter 2? Oh yeah, no volcanic gas this time when Rika-chan dies in that specific way, when she's thrown down a well or whatever by Mion. But oh, when she's a sacrifice, nope. Now the whole village has to die. Something's going on. And maybe I'm thinking too much of it, being a visual novel with different events happening in each of the chapters, but I do look at it in a, this is all one world, just different events taking place sort of deal. I don't know if that's the way I should look at it, but I do think that something's going on for sure behind the scenes that can't be totally explained, that is some magical, mystical force. The third thing, and this came up in chapter 3, is that I think the perspective really changes a lot of what's going on here, and I think that's why mentality has to really play a part in this. We followed Keiichi up through chapter 3. Chapter 4 was a different one, where we followed just another guy that we've never, ever met before. And I think the change in perspective was nice, but it didn't really answer anything. Instead, it just helped in introducing a character that we were once introduced to with Keiichi. Excuse me. With Keiichi, we saw in chapter 1 and chapter 3 that he was losing his goddamn mind. He was, in chapter 3, in my opinion, he became a psychopath. He was showing those types of symptoms. He thought murder would be the only way to resolve a problem. That's not right. And then the things that he did in chapter 1, where things really became fucky there, I would say were also just his mentality falling apart, and what we were witnessing through his eyes may not be cut and dry. So I think his perspective really plays a part in what we've witnessed, and we should probably take a lot of the events that have occurred with a grain of salt because of that. Also, what the hell is going on with Keiichi? Does he have multiple personality disorder? That was also kind of questioned in the previous chapter. I don't know. And the fourth thing that I want to bring up, and this is just a wild, I'm throwing this rock into a fucking, ravine, just hoping it hits something on the way down. But could there be an outside force? Could there be something happening completely outside of the circle of the village of Hinamizawa that is playing a part in this? Because of how Rika-chan is, she was able to predict the future, and she was completely accurate. Could that have something to do with, something else going on? Does it have to be Chisto Yashiro-sama? I have not really considered that there could be some other possibilities going on, something that may be affecting this village from the outside. Now that's a wild one, but I did want to throw that in because it's likely. Who knows? I mean, whatever the actual answer is, and I'm probably far off on everything, but I wanted to throw my final 4 points out. You never know, and I guess we'll see what actually is going on as we jump into the answers arc. Before we end the episode, though, I do want to figure out where that choice was. I think if I load this, we'll see the choice that would lead us into a technical bad ending. I want to see what happens when we basically fuck up and allow ourselves to get our ass beat up. Unfortunately, we have to listen to them speak and get over here and begin the fight, the old tussle. Yeah, listen to that beautiful yelling and such. I think we're coming up on it here. Oh yeah. The sounds of fighting. I love it. I really hope it's... Okay, yeah, we should be coming... Yeah, okay. I was gonna say, I really hope it stops here at the choices. Alright. We're gonna watch for an opportunity. We'll see what happens here. I can't afford to die in a place like this. I need to survive and return to Yukie's side. For a moment, I catch a glimmer of hesitation in the eyes of the man holding the gun. This guy's unsure about shooting at me? If so, maybe if I jump at him now, I could... Okay, well, if you shout like that... In a flash, everything before me grows dark and as my consciousness leaves me behind. It was only after my body temperature rapidly came down and a burning sensation in my chest turned numb that I realized I had been shot. And that was that. Nice. I just wanted to see what would happen. That's exactly what I was theorizing, that if Akasaka jumped in like that, he was gonna, you know, get his ass shot. It was just immediately gonna jump into that. I don't know why they had choices in this. We had two choices, one that was in a tip and one that was in that. And I guess we can see what happens if we choose the other option. I wasn't going to, in the tip that we saw. Where was it? I don't remember which one it was. What's in the box? Yeah, that's what's going on here. I'm sure all these tips that were very vague meant something. Like this one. So I chose the red box, we'll choose the blue. Have you thought about it? In the end, you chose this color, didn't you? As soon as you chose, the other box disappeared, so you can give up on the contents of that one, okay? That's the rule. Now open up the box you chose. Inside the box there was a stick of chewing gum. Right now you're thinking that's it. That's right, the contents of the red box and blue box are a piece of caramel and a stick of chewing gum. You might have thought that you made the wrong choice before, but now seeing them together like this, you can't really say that either choice was the wrong one. Well, I guess everybody has their personal preferences. If you prefer caramel to gum, for example, you're definitely thinking of choosing to open the box again based on that preference. The clear choices you wanted were basically this: the selfish desire to open up both boxes and compare the contents and then pick the one most suited to you. But you see, reality is the same as this game. If you pick one, the one you didn't choose disappears. So there's no way you could check the result. If at that time, if you had done this, or perhaps if you had done that, then it wouldn't be hard to imagine that you could be happier or perhaps less happy than you are right now. In the end, you only have the pleasure of approving of or being disappointed by the choice that you did make. But that's fine. After all, didn't you enjoy the thrill of making the choice? If, like now, you knew the contents of both boxes, then the choice between the red box or the blue box would just be a waste of time. Because instead of this boring game about boxes, you could be looking at the quickly changing evening summer sky, listening for the distant sound of thunder, and pondering if it's gonna rain or not. That'd be much more fun. I mean, that is a valid point. Well, there you go. You know, I played a visual novel. I won't say which one it was. There is a visual novel I played here on the channel that basically has that same sort of philosophy of the choices you make really, you know, get rid of the other. Definitely dig around on my channel if you want to see which one that was. But that is Higurashi When They Cry, Chapter 4. Thank you all for tuning into this and the other ones. I do appreciate it. If you're watching this as this video is being uploaded, or these videos had been uploaded, I announced I'm going to be taking a break from YouTube, which is probably going to work in my favor for Higurashi, because I don't want to get burned out. As much as I'd love to just, like, literally right now load up Chapter 5, because I have the rest of the chapters through 8. I do want to just jump into Chapter 5, not going to lie, and just get started. I am going to force myself not to. I'm taking a break from making videos. So, in a month or so, I will finally jump into Chapter 5, and I hope that many of you will join me, if not all of you. I'm having a lot of fun. I'm glad that all of you have been able to join me for this. So thank you again for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, or anything I've made for Higurashi so far, be sure to leave a like, subscribe so you're ready to go for the next one, and I'll see you guys then. Take it easy.